By Nedbank, we have a special guest that we're going to have what I suspect will be quite an interesting conversation with a very senior lawyer in our country, Honorable
Munyaradzi Paul Mangwana.
Yes, and you've also got a very senior role in the party in terms of mining policy. Yes, maybe you can just articulate to our audience.
I'm the National Secretary for Mines and Energy in the ZANU-PF.
Fantastic.
I'm the first National Secretary for Mines and Energy in ZANU-PF.
And just before the show, you were telling us about how in 2013 you were one of the authors of our constitution.
Yes, I was co-chairing the constitution-making process, which was known as COPAC, and I was leading the ZANU-PF team, which authored this constitution, which is running the country right now.
Fantastic, fantastic. I hope that one of your aspirations in your career is to articulate your journey in a book so that the rest of us can learn about, your experiences and, what actually happened when you guys sat around a table in 2013 to put together this constitution. What was, the thinking, what some of the behind the scenes details,
Sure.
Yeah, we would love to learn this.
Yeah. It can take us a whole day.
So
it was an interesting journey.
Fantastic. So maybe let's start there a little bit, because I'm fascinated as an analyst when I think about our government and I think about ZANU-PF as the ruling party. Economic ideology. You were saying we were chatting a little bit, before we went on air, and you were saying, look, you don't want to be boxed. So I'm not going to try and box you.
I do not believe in these philosophies of saying, because you do this, therefore you are that. That is the boxing. You're trying to put me in a box.
Yes.
What is ZANU-PF? Is it a capitalist party? No, it's not. Is it a socialist party to an extent? Yes. Is it a social democratic party? Yes, it is. But it has got elements of this and that. It loves business. It believes in a market economy. It believes in doing good for its people. It believes in sharing resources. It believes in the majority participation in the economic affairs of the country. So what is it? Are you calling it socialist? I say no. Are you calling it capitalist? I say no. So do not box it. It is a good party for the people.
So my good friend Ranga identifies as a social democrat. Maybe you can define for us, what is a social, what does it mean to be a social democrat, and is ZANU-PF a social democratic party in your mind?
I'll speak for myself the way I look at it. Social democrats, they are more or less like you in terms of believing in free market capitalism. So free enterprise. So if someone wants to set up a business and whatever, it's not seen as something negative. So we are promoting private business enterprises. The profit motive is not a negative word, as it were. So if you're setting up a business to make profit, that's too good. You're providing a service to society, which the society is willing to pay for. But where it's a bit different from is a liberal, where things are a bit different is, we believe that as you are pursuing your profit motive, you also have to consider the social impact of what you're trying to do. The human beings around you. So there has to be someone who's responsible for the needs of these human beings, especially the vulnerable. So yes, we are promoting private business enterprises, but also we need to take care of your society, of the people, to make sure that those that needs to be protected, they are protected. So they believe in democracy in the way you believe it. That's an elected government. It differs. It may differ in terms of whether it has to be a big government or small size government. Unlike you guys who are going all out for chaos and say no, government has got no role in the affairs of individuals or of businesses. We social democrats actually believe that government has got a role because if private sector is left to its own devices, they might actually behave in a way that is detrimental to the society. So it should be able to allow for free business enterprise in a setting that does not then become toxic to the society. So I'll end there. I won't be able to articulate whether ZANU-PF fits or do not fit into that into that matrix. So if you're making money as a private business person, as an investor, I'm happy for you. I wish you well. The only expectation is we know that if we just leave you to go on a frolic of your own, you may actually discount the fact that there are other, important stakeholders that may need to be taken care of, and only the government, in a responsible way, can do that. But it doesn't really advocate for government interfering in business as it were, but just providing the framework in which business can be done without really causing suffering of the population.
So, Honorable, is there a kindred spirit? Does his message of his ideology about organizing society in a social democratic kind of framework
it's in line with
is that who ZANU-PF is?
It's in line with the philosophy of the party. But let me put it this way: ZANU-PF is governed by a constitution.
Okay.
It's a constitutional party.
Okay.
If you read its constitution, it will tell you that it believes in socialism.
Okay.
But with market factors, with Zimbabwean characteristics in mind. The culture of the Zimbabweans, the customs of the Zimbabweans, the idea of market forces coexisting with social democratic principles, all that is in it.
So I've often made the case, and I'm very grateful to have you here to because you can speak with authority. Because on the show I've made the case that some of our challenges in Zimbabwe in terms of economic policy is because the ideology of the ruling party, your key partners and sponsors during the liberation struggle were communists, right?
That is correct.
The ZANLA side was partnered and sponsored by Maoist China. And the ZIPRA side was sponsored and partnered by Soviet Russia, and they have this socialist ideology. And I am of the view
but political parties evolve.
Yes.
What ZANU-PF was in 1980 is not what it is today.
Okay.
It has been evolving, moving, adopting, and adapting. If you do not adapt, then you become irrelevant to society, because society will be developing in a particular direction. So
yes.
It must also move together. So ZANU-PF, as it was in 1980, is not what it is today.
Okay. So are you more or less socialist?
Every year we hold a conference.
Yes.
Every year. Every 5 years we hold a congress. And if you look at the resolutions we make, it is those resolutions, as we implement them, then we'll be implementing the philosophy of the party at each given moment in time, guided by the views which come from the people. When we hold a conference, we make resolutions. People then say to the party leadership, we want to go in this particular direction. It is the responsibility of the party then to implement the resolutions which are coming from the people. And in so doing, it then charts the way forward. Government's role is then to implement what the party say.
So maybe I'll chime in and say, what is the party's attitude towards private businesses? Because there seems to be this cat and mouse kind of relationship between the party and the businesses. And maybe one cynical mind could actually go to the point of saying the party is not comfortable with successful business people.
That is not correct. Actually, the party's philosophy is to encourage private sector growth.
Okay.
And ZANU-PF has created billionaires.
Okay.
Indigenous millionaires and billionaires have been created by the policies of ZANU-PF.
Do you celebrate them?
Yes, we do. Actually, they sponsor the party.
Okay.
In many ways.
Okay.
Nakudata agree, they assist the party a lot.
Okay.
And they're billionaires. We've been created by the party. And they're quite a number.
Okay.
So maybe there's a gap between the perception and the reality, because the perception in the market, because certainly from where we are sitting in the private sector, the perception is that the party is not necessarily friendly.
That is why I'm here.
Yes. So
That's exactly.
So please educate our audience.
That's exactly why I am here. I'm attending this mining Indaba for the first time in the history of ZANU-PF.
Okay.
I'm the first secretary for mines and energy, and I've been given the responsibility to bring the connection between the mining sector and ZANU-PF, and that's exactly what I'm doing.
Fantastic.
It's a journey. We are not yet there, but we've started engaging, starting with this conference.
Okay.
And how do you see that relationship playing
I
out?
think
Is
the
it
response has been
is it a
quite quick.
partnership, or is it more like paternalistic in the way, in the approach? Is the part open to seeing business as partners and say, you know what's good for business is good for
The party.
and the
The
country?
party looks at business as partners.
Okay.
We listen to them. I've been doing a lot of listening since the start of this conference. I've not been talking.
Okay.
I've just been listening to hear what the aspirations of business are.
Okay.
Areas in which the party can assist business thrive. At the same time, we want to see how business can contribute to the growth of our economy, creating employment, increasing the tax base. Because once the tax base has been increased, then government has a bigger pace with which to address social issues. Building of schools, clinics, helping those who are in need, the disabled, the women, the children. We can build more schools and so on, provide more clean water. Those are the responsibilities of government, but it needs money. The money is created by business, which grows the economy, increases the employment levels. Because once our people are employed, they can take care of themselves. They don't live on money coming from government directly. They are able to look after their own families, and everybody's thriving. So that is what the government wants to do. But it must listen to the business. How can business continue to grow and make profits, while at the same time behaving responsibly as citizens? And so we engage so that there's a give and take.
So when I apply my mind to the mining sector, and I think about the last 15, 20 years, one of the things that stands out is, look, it's clear that Zimbabwe has an incredibly rich natural resource endowment.
Correct.
And one of the reasons why we haven't seen it achieve its full potential is because of the policy framework. So if you go back to the days of the GNU, for example,
you are not taking that as a given that we've not achieved. We've not achieved extraction of resources at a certain level compared, only when you compare to other countries.
Yes.
But if you are looking at the growth of the mining sector, looking at Zimbabwe alone, without comparing it to Ghana, for example, then we've done very well. Mind you, around 2017, we were at 3 kgs, 3 tons
Yes.
of gold.
Now we're at about 35, 36.
We're now about 35. A growth of from 3 around 2015, 2016. We're doing 3 tons. And now we are around 40 tons. That's the growth which has happened. And I think it's phenomenal. We've attracted investment, new capital, new projects into the country. And that has been very good. But how are we measuring ourselves? If we measure ourselves against ourselves, we've done very well. But when we measure ourselves against other competitors, because we're now number 10 in Africa, we want to be number 1. So we are benchmarking ourselves against other competitors in Africa to say we're number 10, we do not be number 10. Ghana is at number 1. And I think there's other countries, there's South Africa, I think it's number 3. And that's where we are. So we want to catch up with others. That only comes with increased investment.
Yes.
Better policies, more beneficiation, an area where we've been lagging behind. We don't want to continue mining raw metals and exporting them. We can create more employment by more beneficiation. So those are the areas where we need to improve. And we continue to work on that. More indigenous participation. We want to create proper miners from amongst our people. Democratically, we've got a lot of participants, but they are scratching the surface. They don't have enough equipment to dig deep. They are not processing. They need more equipment for processing. So, and the missing link here is capital. Capital is held by a few big mining houses. Our mining sector is not lending to our indigenous players. The banks are there, but they fear to invest in mining. And we need to give them the necessary confidence so that they can give our people capital to develop their mines.
Yes,
And this is where we're lots of work now.
So I want to double click on what you're talking about in terms of capital flows into the mining sector, because one of the things that I picked up at this conference on the sidelines, just having conversations with investors in the mining space, is that they're much more comfortable deploying capital, sometimes in war-torn countries like DRC, than Zimbabwe, because it's easier for them to model the investment over the next 5-10 years from a policy framework standpoint than in Zimbabwe. In Zimbabwe, today the retention might be 30%. We don't know what it might be in 6 months or in 2 years. We don't know how the currency is going to behave or perform. And that's really why some of this capital is a bit hesitant to come to Zimbabwe, because of those concerns about policy inconsistency and the challenges with the currency. I don't know whether you've heard these concerns and what your view is.
Zimbabwe has been a victim of international propaganda. That's simple. From the time we embarked on land reform, the international media community started lambasting us, making us a pariah state. That's the reason why there's been this negativity towards Zimbabwe. But in terms of policies, we've not amended our mining laws for a long time. This mining act we are using, I think, was crafted in the 1960s. So in terms of the legislative framework, it has been very stable. We are, of course, in the process of amending it, and we are going to be changing it so that it reflects the kind of socio-economic philosophy we now have. And we have a right to change it. That does not chase away investors. What investors want to know is, what does the law say? And how is it implemented? And I think the Ministry of Mines has been very clear. We've had one single Minister of Mines for almost 10 years now. Mr. Chad has been heading this ministry, if I'm not mistaken, now for 7 years. So that is consistency. In other words, whatever he says, you are not changing ministers every day, they change policies. So you cannot say there's been no consistency. There has been consistency. But in terms of investor confidence, it is a question of how the international community has been viewing Zimbabwe since land reform. And we are victims of the negative international media.
So do you feel like as a country we are doing enough to try and address those negative
We can never do enough. We
perception?
are trying. We are trying, but we can never do enough. We have to keep on trying.
Just as an aside, we a couple of days ago, we saw one of our neighbors in the Oval Office at the White House.
Yes.
Also trying to manage perception. How do you think that went with President Cyril Ramaphosa and President Trump in the Oval Office?
My personal opinion, I would not have done that.
You would not have traveled to the Oval Office for that.
No.
What would you have done differently?
I would have continued with my direction, my political, socio-economic direction in my country. If America is not the international community and America is not equivalent to the world, they are only a player like everyone else. If America does not like me, I continue with my life. Zimbabwe took the same attitude when we took our land. We said, if they don't want to befriend us, we still have our country and we still have our resources. We will use our resources and develop our country. And we've been doing so. We may not have been where we want to would have been, but we are there. And we are still in control of our own destiny. We are doing so much for our own people. We are still building schools. We are building new roads. We are building new factories. We have no international support, but we've got our sovereignty, our pride in our country.
But surely, don't you think that we have an opportunity to do a deal? It seems to me, I could be wrong, of course, that President Trump is not given to moralizing or pontificating. He's a man who's interested in doing deals. Should we not be trying to do a deal?
He was not doing a deal. He was embarrassing our leader. He was talking to him as if he was talking to a school child. That's not proper. He is a leader of one of the leading economies in Africa. It was the wrong way to do it. You don't go to the Oval Office and be treated like a young boy. That's what Trump was doing. He was very condescending. And I didn't like it. I respect President Ramaphosa so much. When we were writing the new constitution or constitution of this country,
yes,
he gave us a very good lecture on how we could bring parties together and come up with a constitution, because we actually followed the route he followed when he did CODESA. And I respect him a lot. And I didn't like what I saw. The spectacle was not good.
Don't you think maybe one would say the South Africans learned from Zimbabwe that Zim chose to take a hardline kind of stance, and as a result, in the last 15, 20 years, we've been trying to do it on our own. Yes, there are those achievements that you are talking to, but surely you could have achieved more. And maybe here's someone who is choosing to not look at things from a personal view where he feels embarrassed, but say, what's is good for the country? We want investment into the country, and we want to assure the international community that
you will sell your mother for your supper. Can you do that? You can't do that. A country has character. A country has pride. This is why we had to fight a war of liberation. We would have continued as slaves, being paid salaries, without owning this country. But we chose to go to war. We chose to die for our pride. And we can still die again.
The producer is jumping up and down saying that we're running out of time. This is a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for doing this. And hopefully when you're in Harare, you'll come through to the studio and we can do another hour of this, fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And I hope you guys are having as much fun as we are. Cheers.